These days, a lot of people are concerned about the attachment of American Jews to Israel. It seems that fewer and fewer Jews, especially if they're young Jews, are attached to Israel, care about Israel, and so forth. What can be done about this? Hi, I'm Dr. Stephen M. Cohen, Research Professor of Jewish Social Policy at the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion. And I want to talk to you today about attachment to Israel among American Jews, especially among American young people, and actually in particular, American Jewish liberals. First, the basic facts. It turns out that when we think about how people think about Israel, there isn't just one dimension. I care about Israel, I don't care about Israel. There is that. There's attachment to Israel. But there's also how people feel about government policies. And on the second area, there's a lot of controversy. There are Jews who support Jewish settlements, who have faith in Israel's leadership, who see the Palestinians as implacably hostile to Israel, not trustworthy, even questioning whether Palestinians have a right to be in Israel, so forth and so on. Now, that's one view. It may be a view that's fairly prevalent in Israel, but there's another view. And the other view says, you know, peace with the Palestinians is possible. The settlements in the territories are a mistake. Israeli leaders haven't been all that sincere. The Palestinians would come to a peaceful agreement with Israel if they were given any chance of a reasonable deal. Now, I'm not here to argue about which point is right or wrong. That's for another time. Actually, I have my view. You might be able to guess it. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I'm really concerned about a bigger issue. And that's not where Jews stand about the conflict over what's right and wrong in terms of Israeli government policy. I'm concerned that Jews are not all that connected to Israel, in part because of the government policy, especially among American Jewish liberals. Now, about 6-7 years ago, we did a bunch of research on American Jewish connection to Israel, and we found that the connection was driven by their connection to being Jewish. In fact, if there was a decline, and there was a decline in American Jewish attachment to Israel, it seemed to be driven by intermarriage. That is, in general, people who marry Jews are more active in Jewish life than those who are not, in part because of who they marry, in part because of what came before that. And if there's an effect of intermarriage upon their connection to being Jewish, and especially among their children, that effect was most pronounced with respect to Israel. That is, intermarried, the gap between the intermarried and the unmarried and the children of the intermarried and the unmarried with respect to Israel was even greater than it is for other measures of Jewish engagement. And until a few years ago, I was saying, you know what? Jews aren't alienated from government policy so much, or that their alienation, if they have it, is not affecting their attachment. It's about intermarriage, or it's about connection to being Jewish. Well, just in the last 2 or 3 years, I've begun to see in my data, and others as well, by the way, that people who are politically liberal tend to have very disturbing images of Israel. They say, if we ask them, they say they're ambivalent. They say they're critical. They say even that they're ashamed of Israeli policy. They are more likely than the conservatives to call Israel anti-democratic, oppressive, aggressive, intolerant. So they have a different image of Israel than do conservative people, and their political worldview, their cultural worldview of being liberal, not only causes criticism of Israeli government, but now that criticism seems to flow over to their pure attachment to Israel. They don't want to talk about Israel. They don't want to have their communities talk about Israel. They don't want to have their friends talk about Israel. They don't want to go to Israeli music or Israeli movies. They're really becoming detached from Israel, and that's a real shame. So what can be done about this? Well, I know some people will say, fine, the Israel government should change its policies. And we can agree or disagree about that, but that's not for us to do. We can't make that happen. But we can make something else happen. We can make it possible for people to understand you can oppose Israeli policies, just like, by the way, thousands of Israelis did. Don't forget the last government that formed has a 61-59 margin. That means people who voted for 59 Knesset members who don't agree with the current government, more or less. And you can be just like those Israelis. You can think the government is making a terrible mistake. You can think that it's moving in an anti-democratic direction. You can think it's not being open enough to the Palestinians. You can think that it represents the three no's: no peace, no democracy, and no religious pluralism, as some people do. You can think all that, but you can still be involved with Israel. And what we need to do is to change the conversation, change the culture, and say that as long as you continue to recognize the importance and the right of Jews to have a state within the land of Israel, and not have a state that is entirely in the land of Israel, if you believe in that, and you want to criticize those people who feel otherwise, you belong in the Jewish conversation, you belong in the Israel conversation, you belong in the Zionist conversation, just like thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of Israelis themselves. And that's what I'm calling for here. I'm calling for the embrace of Jews who connect with the Israeli opposition. Those Jews who connect with the opposition, be they contributors to the New Israel Fund, or part of Amenu, or active at Encounter, or Partners for Progressive Israel, or numerous other American Jewish organizations, Reform Zionists comes to mind, but there are others as well. All those groups and more belong inside the tent. And we need to be encouraging them, and not just welcoming them, but saying, no, you're just as Israel engaged and committed as people who support the government. Opposition to the Israeli government and support for the Israeli government are two sides of the same coin. They're both about being involved with Israel. And that's what we need these days. We need more and more Jews involved with Israel, and let them disagree about the future directions of the Israeli government and its leadership. Thank you very much. Please do get in touch with me. I'm Professor Stephen M. Cohen of Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion. My email is steve34nyc@aol.com. Thanks again. Let's be in touch. Bye-bye. And one more thing. Whether you like this video or not, I think you found it stimulating. Certainly if you're looking at me right now. And if so, I think your friends and your family will find it stimulating. So do us both a favor. Do them a favor. Share this video with your friends and family.